Hello and welcome to the video. This is finally my flight review of this thing here. This is the AtomRC Beluga. Now, I've had it for quite a few months. AtomRC asked me to hang on to my flight review until March when they had more availability of the product. So there's a good chance you've seen other content creators actually release their reviews, flight reviews of this thing already. But I thought it would be interesting, particularly with my love of AtomRC models historically, to put this one through its paces and to let you know what I think. Now, this model represents a bit of a departure from AtomRC from the other things that I've had in here. Everything from things like the killer whale to the AtomRC dolphin, the penguin, the swordfish. They make some fantastic models designed around FPV. They can look a little bit funky, but they fly brilliantly and provide an amazing platform for modern, up-to-date FPV flying with flight controllers and HD FPV systems like Walk Snail, DJI and HD0. But as I talked about in my unboxing and building of this, this is a bit different. It's designed to look like a proper aircraft. And what I mean by that is that you could absolutely end up painting this up and make it look like a proper little aircraft. It has retracts. It has a bubble canopy that you can put the FPV stuff inside. It has a traditional T-tail. It looks for all the world like a proper little plane. And because of that, there is quite a few things in this that are a little bit different. And as a result, it flies differently to the others in the lineup. So let me talk very quickly about how I've built mine here and how we've been flying it. I'm using a 4000 mAh 6S lithium ion pack to power mine. That's not giving me massive flight times because it seems to be pulling quite a lot of current. I'll show you that in a minute. I have installed the GM3 Walk Snail gimbal on this. That was the one that was originally I played with the Reptile Dragon 2 on it. It's a great platform for that. And I wanted to kind of get an idea of what it was going to be look like. I haven't fitted the landing gear in mine because the field that we fly in, there's no way that landing gear is going to work. So we're hand launching and belly landing this one. And with the battery inside, that means the flying weight here is 1,682 grams. So the things that I noted from the build was the manual needs to be improved a little bit here. So AtomRC, please put a little bit more in the manual about particularly doing things like wiring the retracts in. I don't think that's clear enough in the existing documentation. One of my flaps on the back of the starboard wing is a little bit bent. The ailerons have adapted themselves thanks to iNav to compensate for that, but just be aware of that. This seems to be a common thing with them from what I've seen other builders with their versions as well. Disappointingly, the canopy is not optically clear, so I just aren't going to use it. I've just kept it off so that I can actually see what I'm looking at. Really disappointed that that's the case here, because surely if you're going to do something as bold as include a large bubble canopy for your model and put all of this stuff ready so that you could put FPV gear inside there with a little scale cockpit with all the dials and things on it, you would put a little bit more effort into it. Maybe that's something they'll refine over time. The iNav setup out the box seems okay. I have changed the ESCs to be D-Shot 150 and they work absolutely fine by default. On this one, it was supplied as standard, so that would mean you'd have to calibrate them. However, setting them to D-Shot, they've worked brilliantly. A couple of things about launching it. If you're going to launch this thing, then it is a two-handed launch. It's quite a big plane. So if you are going to hand launch, this is something that you're going to have to put your radio down for or have it on some kind of lanyard safely around your neck in order to throw and use iNav Auto Launch to help you. There's loads and loads of static thrust on this thing. So this would easily be able to, if you had a flat enough piece of ground or concrete, if you put the landing gear in, you could easily taxi and pull it off the ground quite easily. It can get lift at relatively low speeds, and with the static thrust it can get up to those low speeds very quickly and get into the air. Before we get into the standard scores, top speed isn't particularly massive. There seems to be a lot of drag on this airframe, and those smaller three-bladed props really seem to be struggling to provide any real speed when you're actually flying around. And the cruising we've played with here is about the 40 to 50 miles an hour, typically pulling on average around 10 amps, about 5 amps for each motor. So let me use my standard score sheet. That will allow you to do a direct comparison. Don't forget, this is the way that I do it on all of my models so that you can do a direct comparison side by side. And first of all, we are going to look at the slow speed. Gets a decent 4 stars for this. It can fly below 50 mile an hour with flaps and a little care. Has seems to have pretty gentle stall characteristics. There's a lot of air flowing over the wings from those two props mounted at the front. Particularly if you drop the flaps, then you have quite a floaty aircraft that tends to come in very softly, but also means that you can get into the air very quickly if you are doing a rolling start with the landing gear down. High speed, as I've already indicated, isn't particularly good. We're only getting 68, almost 70 miles an hour with the throttle wide open, and that's pulling a whopping 66 amps to do that, which is way more than my little 4,000 milliamp hour lithium ion battery is going to be happy with. And that's running on 6S2. That's a huge amount of power to get a very, very average speed. I'm sure if you used LiPo batteries on this, you could probably get a little bit more. You wouldn't have the same kind of voltage drop that I've got here, but even on its best day going downhill, I think you'd struggle to break 75, 80 miles an hour on this thing. That's not what it's built to do. Efficiency is not great, only 1.5 stars here. It can fly for more than 12 minutes on the 4,000 milliamp hour pack that I'm using. Cruising, again, about 45 miles an hour. It's pulling about 10 amps, so 5 amps per motor. And that means that, you know, you're getting through about 1,000 milliamps in around 4 minutes of kind of cruise flying. There is loads of latitude in this model to put in a far bigger battery with an awful lot more capacity, and that will obviously improve that. But this is not a gentle sipper of power as it's flying around. This tends to be quite hungry in terms of the power it needs to stay in the air and overcome a lot of the resistance because of the bulbous frame. Noise isn't bad. It's 3.5 stars. You can hear it when it would be flying in a park, but it isn't that loud. It does seem to be nicely set up for that. You haven't got the screaming kind of motors. You just have the general drone that you would expect from something like this. So that means you're not going to attract lots of unwanted attention. Toughness, I would give that a nice 4 stars because you can bring it in at quite a slow speed. It means that you can just drop it into the grass, or that you can bring it in and kind of just touch it down onto the tarmac if you're using the landing gear. I imagine that because of the weight, this is 1.6 kilograms without the landing gear, without a bigger battery. If you're running a heavier model, then there is more potential for that momentum to turn into something nasty if you do have a crash. Acrobatics scores a very average 3.5 stars. This is a nice stable aircraft, but it does perform loops and rolls with the default throws. The default throws and set up in iNav are a little bit aggressive, so that means that when you're flying in things like angle or horizon, I'd recommend starting off with that when you start to fly this thing. Once you get it into manual mode, you can throw it around because those throws are pretty impressive. Nice crisp response from the elevator, good roll response from the ailerons. Rudder is okay, but not fantastic because of course this is a twin, and those two motors out on the wings are just dragging it through the air by the leading edge on both sides. Room inside gets a whopping 4 stars. Surprisingly, despite its huge size, there just tends to be a couple of little areas, one for the flight controller, there's one for the VTX on the top, which is where I put my receiver, my Express LRS receiver on this one. You don't have to really panic or struggle to get everything in place. The only thing that I would say is that the canopy, as it's supplied, I'm not sure would give you enough airflow to keep your Warts No unit cool. Last one is travel and breakdown. It gets a 3-star. It does break down into smaller parts with tools. However, I'm having to just take the tail off, take the nose off. It'll fit in the passenger side of my car, but it won't fit in the boot. So be aware of that. This is a relatively big plane, and to take it apart, you're going to have to unscrew stuff with an Allen key. So in summary, this isn't the in-canopy FP model a lot of us wanted until they fix that canopy clarity. However, as you've seen, if you get rid of the canopy, it's actually very nice and you get a nice clear view. But surely one of the big selling points of this was that it had that bubble canopy on top. So AtomRC, I hope, are working on making that better for future. But with enough of a battery, this could be set up to be an efficient mid or long range cruiser, and this does represent a departure for AtomRC from their other models in the range. For me though, I would personally change a number of things to suit the way that I prefer to fly. I would alter the bulbous nature of the body to have less drag and better efficiency. I would change the motor and prop setup, get rid of the 3-bladed prop, think about 2-bladed props. Unfortunately, that would increase the chance of a prop strike when you're coming in to land it on the belly, but it would potentially give us a little bit more efficiency, and potentially changing the pitch maybe also give us a little bit more pitch speed as well. There's an awful lot of static thrust, and I would balance it a little bit more so that you still have lots of static thrust, but also set up for better efficiency and probably slightly more speed too. I'd personally lose the whole canopy thing until it's optically clear. If you can't get that right, I'd have just redesigned the hatch so it wasn't needed. Then, to be honest, if I did all the things to it, what I'd end up with is a swordfish, a killer whale, or a reptile dragon 2. So if that's what you want, you can go and get one of them instead. This is really aimed at those pilots who want something that looks like a proper aircraft with retractable canopy, traditional tail, flaps, navigation lights and all of that stuff. But to get the best out of it, I would set your expectation that this isn't going to set the sky on fire, and you're going to need a pretty large battery to get a decent flight time. Thank you for watching my video. Check out the playlist, and adding Pedantry 60 to your search terms will help you find my content. If you haven't done so already, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. You can support the time I spend here answering questions and helping others by using the links in the video description.